Zoom record. There we go. So thank you for joining us. Here's a bit of the agenda. We'll go over some of the housekeeping rules. We'll get into work categories, the topic of today's monthly training. Tutorials demonstrate how you create work orders, etc. We'll end with a Q&A and we'll point out where you can connect with our support team if any other questions come up. So, housekeeping and rules, this is being recorded so that you can always revise if needed. If you ever register for the webinar and cannot make it, great. That's what we want to see so that we can send you that recording. We've got your email. We'll email you the recording at any time. Well, it won't be too long today. I'm going to say probably max half an hour. We usually say half an hour to 45, but today's topic won't take too long. All right, so your hosts, I'm Mel Motosh. I'm the product enablement manager here at ClickMate, and I have been working in this field for over 12 years or so, dealing with thousands of maintenance teams in various industries and working directly with thousands of maintenance technicians. I am from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Manitoba and an education degree from Western in Ontario. Genesis, who are you?
Hey everyone, my name is Genesis Tapala, Customer Success Manager here at ClickMate. So for myself, I've been in the CMMS space since 2019 and here at ClickMate for just about a year now. But during my time in the CMMS space, I have trained several companies on how to use CMMS. And so now I'm a Customer Success Manager here at ClickMate, and I do have my Bachelor of Arts from the University of Winnipeg.
All
So that's a little
right.
bit about me,
Mm.
and let's jump into the topic.
Yeah, for sure. So Genesis, you're going to start with these. What is a work category?
Of course. So today's topic, we are looking at work categories in ClickPaint. So what this is, it's a simple field with a big operational impact. So this does often get overlooked during the setup process, but when set up well, teams can organize work more clearly and report more accurately. So work categories, they do organize maintenance into meaningful groups such as boiler, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, general maintenance. And work category often answers the question, what kind of work is this? But this is different from work type. So which answers the question of whether the job is reactive or preventive. It's also different from asset and location, which we have in ClickMaint, which tells you where the work is happening rather than what kind of work it is. So in this slide, now that you actually have open here, we do see an overview of why categories are important, where we see that work categories help teams stay organized by grouping similar work in a clear and consistent way. So they do help make it easier to filter for work orders, improve reporting, spot trends, and it supports better assignment, which creates a stronger foundation for future order automations in your workflow. So overall, work categories do bring structure in the work order process, and they help you find your work faster. This does help you assign jobs more consistently and supports smarter workflows as processes evolve. So with that being said, I guess we can jump into the tutorial in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all that just being said, thanks, Genesis. I want to point out that the reason him and I selected this topic is because it's really surprising how many people don't make use of the work categories. And it's such a small thing to add, but such an effective feature that really, really helps you out for all the reasons that Genesis mentioned. So here's a bit of an idea of what we're going to get into. I'll demonstrate how to create, edit, delete work categories, how to apply them, how to filter, how to run reports, and we'll also talk a little bit about what's next for work categories. So let's get into this. Let's log into, oops, hang on here. Let's log into ClickMate. I'm in my demo account. So in order to create a work category, it is done by an admin or those that have access to the admin settings. And when you click on that module at the bottom of the main menu there, an admin has access to the Manage Modules tab. And under the Reference List section, Categories. This is where you can see all the existing categories in your program. I'll say that there's probably about 14 default categories that come with the system. Um, and to specify that when you create a new category, you can decide for those of you that have multiple entities, if you want to use that category in one or several or all of them. So that is an option. Now, to create a new category, just to be consistent with everything else in our system, adding information, there's a plus button in the top right corner. Simply type in the category name. I'm going to create a new one called mechanical, and I'm going to spell it incorrectly on purpose. And this is where I choose to associate this to which entity. So if I'd like to have mechanical visible to my work orders, reports, running reports on that, I'd select all, or you can select one or again, multiple. And we'll have that in all. And now I'll go ahead and hit save. So in case there are any errors, notice when I do hover my mouse over the name, I've got my edit icon, which is that pencil there, and I can click on that, go back into that field and make those changes. Just go ahead and hit save. Now, anytime you create something from an admin global setting, I do suggest that you hit refresh so that kind of um, gets it, loads the system and makes it applicable. So I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. Now, the other thing I want to point out is you can delete categories. For example, I have one here that's called NA. We're a little bit sticky on deleting things because if there already is a history with anything that is associated to this category, we want to make sure that you really do want to delete this. So as far as deleting categories, it would be a similar process that I'm going to hit the NA, the icon next to NA. There is a delete button there. Confirmation always, and this is going to say that I cannot delete this category because it's been associated to something in the program. So whether it's a work order, etc. So what you can do is I'm going to go into my work orders. I will use one of my work categories here, NA. There I can see there is a work order. I've found that and I can go ahead and delete this. This would actually be the process. Once I've removed that ticket, now I can go back into my admin settings after you've found all those categories. And now I'm going to go ahead, hit delete, and that will confirm that I've successfully removed that category. So a little bit sticky, but that's for good reason because we want you to be sure when you delete things in the system, after you do have a history of it, you want to make confirmation. So I have created a new work category called mechanical. Where does this apply? Work categories primarily, I would say, are, this is the screen that most people make use of. Let me get rid of my filter here. Um, let's go to the default, which you normally log in. So most used is creating a work order. When I create a work order, whether it's a reactive or a preventive, this is one of the fields that you can associate. I should also point out that remember on these forms, you can make anything on this form mandatory, right? So if you want your categories to become mandatory, a reminder that is another admin setting. Let me go back there before we actually create that work order. So in admin settings, manage modules, admins can go to their work orders and say, yeah, every time I create a work order, we want to make sure that everyone on my team includes that information. That would be an option. Okay, so if you toggle that on, again, hit refresh, and you would have a small little asterisk next to the work order form. So creating a work order with mechanical, I'm going to say I want to create a work order that we need to replace a bearing somewhere on my line here. And I'm going to need new bearing. Okay. It's as simple as adding that category here. So we'll enter mechanical. Next question I'm guessing you might have is, can we have more than one category? Absolutely. You can attach multiple categories to your work orders. So I'll attach mechanical. This is for my reactive work order. I can add all my other details. Nothing is made mandatory at that time, and then that's as simple as creating that work order. Likewise, when you create a preventive work order, it's the exact same instructions that maybe we need to, I don't know, we're going to do a CNC replace belt. This is my PM that I'm creating under my mechanical. So monthly routine. And again, mechanical. And we're going to now switch this to a PM and persistently, let's say we do this every 4 weeks. I like to use the week one starting, oops, we'll start next month. And my team has 4 days to complete this. Again, so I'm going to hit save. Now, when I've created that reactive work order, it's sitting here. Categories is one of those quick filters that help you group those work orders together. So I've created that reactive work order. I'd like to see everything under mechanical. Great. This is a super fast, efficient way to group those tickets together under that category. If it's really important to you to see categories, don't forget that you have your view settings. So every user in the system can customize how they are seeing these columns of information and category. Maybe I want to bring that all the way up to the front. I hit apply and I'll get my category listed there. So that's as far as reactive, the quick filters, the view settings that you have. Likewise, I created that new PM. It's going to jump to the top there. Categories is one of the filters. If you want to see everything that you have under mechanical, great way to get that quick visual and see what you've got in your system. Likewise, in your PM module, you also have category that you can quickly filter. Now, let me point out with each of these columns, you have your quick filters, but when you hover in each column header, you can also group these together alphabetically or numerical. So if I'd like to see everything under my mechanical or anything under my general maintenance there, that just helps me group them together. So pretty straightforward to add to the system, but really, what's the advantage after that when I add those? Um, it really comes down to when you want to get your results later. I mean, that's kind of the goal of using this system is to run reports on all this information. One way that we do, and I'm going to jump into the reports and KPI section, but one way that people really like to see a lot of information, especially with the completed work orders, is with your quick filters, you have filter. We've shown you what's easy, what's common to group together. But if I click on filters, there's a condition here that's adding an additional rule. Basically, what this will do will allow you to grab any field of information on those work orders and get that data. That's always why the more information you put on a work order, the better, because the easier it's going to allow you to gather. So I want to run a report for everything that's been completed. This is going to give me a whole long list. I've got over, nearly 1,300 work orders here, but I'd like to group it together by my work category. Okay, and I can see anything under mechanical. I just created it, so we don't have much there. I didn't close that work order, but you get the idea. We can have, say, general maintenance. Now I've just got everything under that category. Remember that you can export, but these filters, this also allows you to say the category is exactly in select one or has all of the following, and you can select multiple. All right, so that's a really good example of why you'd want to group these together. Now, when we go to the reports and KPIs, there is one specific category here that is strictly associated by category. So it's already doing the math for you. If you have a work order, you've added your time or your invoices or your costs, this is already doing the math for you and grouping those work orders together. Remember when you do run reports that there's a date picker up at the top. This allows you, we've got the pretty common filters here. So if I'd like to see anything from this year, hit apply, my results will change. I can see, no category has been associated. That's why that NA one wasn't really a great one because we do highlight anything that you have not applied a category to. Now I'm going to expand on this. And just to touch on that, naming categories, you want something that is, for example, HVAC. HVAC is great because HVAC is going to cover, you don't want a air conditioner or heating system. You want to group it together, something that your team is going to be familiar with, more of the universal terminology that we see here. So too broad, it isn't necessarily great. It'll just get confusing. So try and keep it clean with the naming that you use. Think about if it's are you addressing a trade or a department or a system, and is that applicable to all? So we have our categories here in our reports. We can narrow this down by the day. So we can see that, I could see on this day, for example, there was a lot of hits to this particular category here. It looks like inspections, week, month, and year. And then, of course, with reports, you'll have your KPIs across the top and list view below. And don't forget that you can always export that. Now, this is a work category that is obviously titled work category. That's great and convenient, but those work categories are applicable to just about all of these work orders. Let's say that you're running a report on work orders that you completed versus created this anything that is completed on time versus overdue. If I go ahead and open up this report, remember I was talking to you about filters earlier. Filters are applicable also in your reports. That means that I can grab the category. I see these results, but now I can grab this category and say, well, I'd like to see everything that is under general maintenance, hit apply, and my results change. Again, that is applicable to just about any report. So that can really help you narrow down and group those work orders together. Um, so we're going to, let's see, I want to get an idea on a little bit of a poll. I've put that up on the screen. We want to know how many of you are currently using work categories. We have another question there. So if you can take a couple minutes and go ahead and enter that poll, and we'll see some of your results there.
And I guess while we're waiting for the results, Mel, should we answer some of the questions that are coming in?
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
do have some questions, yeah, go ahead. If you have something that I can demo.
for sure. I think it's appropriate here. We have one. What are some of the common mistakes that could cause these reports to be skewed?
Mm. I would, well, we talked about the naming mechanism, right? You want to make sure that the names are consistent. You don't want 10 names under HVAC unit, right? Because maybe one person's going to grab AC, one person's going to grab heating. So keep it clean and consistent for your team. That's what I would say would be one of the biggest errors. Anything else we want to jump into at Genesis before I end this poll here?
I think that's one of the only questions we have now. We do have another one from Jonathan here. Why was NA showing after we had deleted the category? But I believe we'd covered that with the not assigned that we had at the top there.
Yeah. Okay, let's end this poll and we'll share the results here. That it looks like most of you do um, use the categories. So the reason I asked the second question, why would you like to auto assign a tech to work orders based on their category is, yay, great. Because that is a feature that we do have coming up that we're expecting pretty soon. Each of you will have the ability to basically assign a category to a profile. So any user in the system, you can go ahead and say, this technician is specifically associated to carpentry or electrical. And that means that you'll be able to auto assign. If that work order populates with the category when you select it, then you can assign the correct technician. So keep an eye out. That is coming up fairly shortly. We're pretty excited to bonus make that kind of announcement in this webinar. All right. Anything else? Like I said, any other questions that we can hit on before we end this webinar?
We have another question coming from Jonathan. Can we link a category to a vendor?
Can we link? Yes, absolutely. That is one of them that you can do. So if I go to my vendors module and I create a new vendor, then that could be one of the details associated. And you can see here, same thing, your view setting. Remember that each of our modules, they all are designed the same. So any module you go to, you can rearrange those view settings. Some of you might have that category hidden there, but yes, it absolutely allows you to associate a category to vendor. Anything else?
And just a few other questions here. Is there a limit on how many categories we can create or associate to a work order?
No, there is no limitation. I've never heard of it, so I'd say go nuts. Right? Yeah, like I
Great.
said, I think the default is about 12. Let's take a look here. I think it's about 14 or so that are the default. But keep in mind, even we've suggested this for, say, large projects or outsourcing versus insourcing. If that, you're asking about vendors. If you want to say, hey, this is under electrical, but I also want to label this that this has been an outsource. Uh, Keep that in mind that that's another means of grouping your work orders together and running reports later. Because when if you have those work orders and you go ahead and you add, your time or your parts or your costs, these are the monetized areas. Those will be calculated with that category here. And that's when you're going to get your results in your reports. Okay. Yeah, group projects, large projects, I've seen that. Um, something that's not so much your day to day, but you want to group together projects that are a little bit larger or ongoing. Departments, right? Anything else there, Genesis?
I think that's it as far
Okay.
as questions.
Well, the last thing I'd like to point out is remember when those questions come up, you all have access to this icon here that opens up this window. Send us a message that goes to our support team. We are happy to help out when the time comes. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you again next month. Bye bye.